In this problem, we're going to calculate the required return on a portfolio that consists only of stocks, and along the way, we'll also calculate the portfolio beta. So imagine we've got a portfolio that has three different types of stocks in it: Bush Beans, Mountain Hardwear Corporation, and Nortec, and we have 500 shares of Bush Beans trading at $40 each, 300 shares of Mountain at $20 each, and 700 shares at $10 each. And we have betas of 1.3, 1.7, and 0.6 for the three different stocks. Now what we're going to do, since we're going to calculate required rates of return and use the capital asset pricing model for it, we need betas, which we have. We also need a risk-free rate, and we need a market risk premium. So the question is, what is the portfolio's required rate of return? And the answer is going to be 12.73%, but let's go ahead and see how the calculations work out. We won't even need to use the financial calculator actually here because it's only adding and subtracting, multiplying, and dividing here. All right, so let's go ahead and do the calculations so that we can get the portfolio weights. The first thing we need to do is figure out how much we have for each of the stocks. And so we have 500 shares of Bush times $40 a share. That's $20,000 for Bush stock. We have for Mountain Hardwear 300 shares times the $20 a share. That's $6,000. And for Nortec we have 700 shares times the $10 a share. That gives us $7,000. And so calculating the portfolio weights for Bush, that's $20,000 that we have in Bush divided by the total amount that we have invested, which is the $20,000, $6,000, and the $7,000 together, which gives us 60.61% for Bush. For Mountain Hardwear, we have $6,000 in Mountain Hardwear plus 26 and 7. That gives us 18%. And then the similar calculation for Nortec, $7,000 for Nortec divided by the 20 plus 6 plus 7 total amount invested in our portfolio. That's 21.21%. So we have calculated the weights, 60%, 18%, and 21% for our investment. The second step is to calculate each stock's required rate of return. And we're going to use the capital asset pricing model for each of those, and that's pretty simple too. It's the risk-free rate plus beta times the market risk premium. And in this case, I've given you a market risk premium rather than an expected return on the market and the risk-free rate. Remember that this quantity in parentheses, the market risk premium, is also defined to be the expected return on the market minus the risk-free rate. So be sure you understand, given which the data that I give you, whether you need to use, well, you always want to use the market risk premium in here. You just need to make sure whether you have to calculate it or not. This time I have given you the market risk premium. So 6 plus 1.3 times 5.5 gives us 13.15%. And then similarly for Mountain, we have a beta of 1.7 and we have a same market risk premium. Notice every time you do one of these things, this quantity in parentheses is going to be the same. Market risk premium for every stock is the same. That has to do with the total market, not the individual stocks, and it's the beta that's different for different stocks. All right, so we have a 15% required rate of return on Mountain, and we have a 9.3% required rate of return on Nortec. So now that we've done that, all we have to do is the actual multiplication and adding and subtracting. And the way you calculate the required return on the portfolio is we take the weight for the first stock, the weight for Bush, times its required return, plus the weight for Mountain times its required return, plus the weight for Nortec times its required rate of return, which gives us 12.73%. Alternately, and this is a completely equivalent way of doing the calculations, you could instead calculate the portfolio beta, or I might actually ask you to calculate the portfolio beta. You calculate the portfolio beta as the weight on Mountain times Mountain's beta plus the weight on, this is Bush Brothers, the weight on Bush times its beta plus the weight on Mountain times its beta plus the weight on Nortec times its beta. And so this portfolio has a beta of 1.22. Now if we want to figure out what the required rate of return on the portfolio is given its beta, Then we use the capital asset pricing model here, the risk-free rate plus the portfolio beta times the market risk premium. That gives you 12.73%. These numbers are the same, 12.73%, 12.73%. That's because the calculations work out exactly the same. That's the way it ought to be. But you could do the calculation either way you like.